Finally, after all the trials and tribulations, Max Verstappen is a four-time world champion. Hello everyone, welcome to Straight Talks F1. And yes, the Las Vegas GP has seen the crowning of F1's world champion for 2024. Max Verstappen has secured his fourth world championship, fourth consecutive world title. Verstappen has finally shut down that championship battle narrative that we had. Lando Norris, the championship contender and everything. It just never was a championship battle, and his win in Brazil was basically the final nail in the coffin. I think Las Vegas was just a formality. I felt it was a bit far-fetched that he would secure the championship in Vegas itself. I thought it could get delayed to Qatar, but yeah, I was wrong. I mean, Red Bull weren't as bad. Perez, as usual, was awful, but Verstappen made it to the top 5. Again, maximizing his result in a race where Mercedes were the fastest. Mercedes was superb this weekend. Like, they were the big surprise, and they like it in the cold. The cold weather in Vegas, the night race, cooler conditions in Vegas and Nevada, it just suited the W15 perfectly. Like, Mercedes would love races in Russia, Antarctica, Finland, and the Nordic countries. Formula One could one day race in Antarctica, maybe. Antarctic GP. Mercedes would sign up for that immediately. They have had this trend of their car working in the cold for a while. Cooler conditions, cooler temperatures always make their car work better. Ferrari are the opposite, they like the hotter conditions where the tires get up to temperature faster. So Mercedes sort of overshadowed Ferrari as well in this race. They were supremely quick throughout the weekend. And George Russell finally got his redemption for the Belgian GP disqualification. I thought it was important to mention this because that disqualification really hurt. It would have hurt Russell a lot. The kind of stint that was 34 lap stint at a track like Spa, he was superb in that race. Where everyone else pulled off a two stopper, he went for the one stopper, made it work, and then to get disqualified hours later because his car went underweight. Yes, rules are rules, but it definitely hurts from a sporting perspective. So, this was definitely his redemption for Belgium, his third career victory. Thankfully, he's not been disqualified now. But yeah, a lot to talk about the Las Vegas GP. A superb race, I would say, but mainly Verstappen's crowning as a four-time world champion. Now, it was quite a straightforward equation for Max. I felt it was far-fetched to do it in Vegas because I thought that McLaren would be the fastest car and Norris could win that race, which sort of defies Verstappen's chances. Given Red Bull are not the fastest car, they are the third fastest at the moment behind Ferrari and McLaren. So I thought he may finish fifth or fourth, and that definitely does not help his championship permutations. But I was too optimistic from McLaren's perspective, having seen how Norris's bottle race wins. But yeah, they were genuinely struggling this weekend, and Verstappen took full advantage of it. McLaren and Norris were not up there, and Verstappen ensured that he's there ahead of Norris. He did not care about the Ferraris, he did not care about the Mercedes, he ensured he stayed ahead of Norris. Mercedes and Ferrari basically spoiled McLaren's party too, besides McLaren not being able to get their car up there. And Verstappen still prevailed. Amid Mercedes and Ferrari being the faster car, he was running P2 behind George Russell. It wasn't like he was going to challenge Russell for the win, but it still was a huge deal because at that particular point he was basically outscoring Norris by 10-12 points. And he did not waste time fighting Hamilton and the Ferraris who were coming behind. So it was a matter of time that he clinched the title. As the race started, it sort of felt like as the race ends, Verstappen will be world champion. It just did not feel like Norris had anything in his arsenal to stop Verstappen's crowning in Vegas. And it was kind of cool for Verstappen to do it in Vegas itself. A happening race, night race, one of the most entertaining cities. He would have partied a lot. And the cause for party is definitely special because he's equaled Sebastian Vettel's record, 4 consecutive World Championships for Red Bull. So besides Fangio, Schumacher, Hamilton, and Vettel, Verstappen becomes the fifth driver to win 4 consecutive World Championships. Alan Prost has 4 championships, but they haven't come in consecutive years. He won in 85, 86, then 89, and 93. So quite the achievement for Max Verstappen. Only the sixth driver besides the four aforementioned drivers and Prost to have 4 or more world titles. He is just proving why he is so highly rated, why people were dying to sign him in 2014. Mercedes desperately wanted him, but they did not have a seat to offer him. Red Bull were the ones who offered him that early promotion, and today see where he is, a 4-time world champion. There's no doubt that his name should always be there in the GOAT debate. The kind of season he's driven this year, maximizing his results despite having a slower car for the majority of the season. Since Miami and Imola, he did not have the fastest car. McLaren was the fastest car on the entire grid. Even Ferrari had a slump. Mercedes sort of were on a resurgent form, but even they dropped away. McLaren were consistently the fastest, and Norris wasn't able to capitalize. But Verstappen still prevailed. He ensured he maximized his races, getting podiums whenever it was possible. He had frustrating moments in Austria and Hungary. A winless streak after Spain. He did not win a single Grand Prix till Brazil, and then winning in Sao Paulo in a way that just basically sealed the championship for him. Effectively, he was a 4-time world champion in Brazil itself. It was just a formality that he had to finish the race in Vegas ahead of Norris. So for me, Verstappen's name will be definitely up there in the GOAT debate besides Schumacher, Hamilton, and Senna. A 4-time world champion finally, after all the title battle, narrative, and everything. He's ensured that he shut them up forever. Not forever, they'll again start in 3 months. In 2025, McLaren would be the fastest car probably. So Lando Norris, a world championship contender. For now, Red Bull and Verstappen can enjoy. And his crowning moment in Vegas definitely overshadowed what was a seamless performance from Mercedes and George Russell. Now, Mercedes like it cold. The cooler conditions in Vegas, it definitely propelled them back to the top. Like, I thought something like this could happen. Like, maybe someone like Alpine or McLaren could just be up there. Like, Alpine were in Brazil already. I thought maybe Gasly or Ocon could do something similar. And Gasly was up there. He qualified third. It was superb from Pierre Gasly. Unfortunately, he had a DNF. He had an engine issue. It's good to see that Alpine are switching to Mercedes engines because that Renault power unit is just hopeless. So good to see that they are switching to Mercedes power units from 26. They still have 1 more year next season to go through the painful Renault power units. But they're coming back to Mercedes. They were there to spoil the party for McLaren, for Ferrari, just a cut above the rest. Russell, Hamilton, they were at the top in free practice sessions. It was an outlier track, outlier conditions, a night race started at 10 pm, qualifying also at the same time. So the temperatures were rather low. They were around 10 to 15 degrees Celsius, maybe even lower. At times it was 7-8 degrees Celsius. So Mercedes have had this trend of their car being better in lower ambient temperatures. The track temperature is low because of the lower ambient temperature, and that helps Mercedes from a tire warm-up perspective. Their car has got that to work for some reason, that whenever the conditions are cooler, the Mercedes car lights up. And in this race as well, in Vegas, a lot was dependent on the tire grip. The track was dirty in FP1, and that is often the case on street circuits. Tire grip and tire degradation can throw strategies off. It can put some teams out of the window. Some teams like Mercedes gain a lot, and they did it. It was a 1-2 finish. Russell qualified on pole, and even Hamilton was in the fight, but he made the error, qualified only 10th. And from there, it was a difficult climb for him, climb back up to the podium. But Toto Wolff had predicted that Hamilton can come back to the podium. Mercedes had the pace. And yeah, the regime was back basically. Once again this season, the Mercedes German regime was back at the front to win races. Like no team has had such kind of ups and downs in this entire season, in any season perhaps. Even Ferrari, their slump was very straightforward and clear. After Monaco, they dropped off, they had awful races, and after Italy, they brought upgrades in Italy, and that worked and then got them back into contention. But Mercedes, at one race, they are podium sitters, at another race like Brazil, they are nowhere. And Hamilton in particular, he's just miserable at times in qualifying. While George Russell somehow gets it into top 5, somehow gets the car on the podium. Baku, for example, he was nowhere. Hamilton in particular was nowhere. Russell was there in P5, P6 territory. And then there was the accident with Perez and Sainz. And Russell got the podium. So Mercedes is always a team that is maximizing their position. They have to maximize because they haven't got the fastest car these days. So whenever things go sideways for one of the McLarens or the Ferraris or the Red Bulls, they're there to pounce on the good result. They're there to pick up the pieces often. And in this race as well, McLaren weren't up to their best. Ferrari were there or thereabouts. I would say Ferrari were the fastest team. It's just that Mercedes worked well in these cooler conditions, and that's the reason they overshadowed Ferrari. Or else, if Mercedes were in their regular form, the form that they have shown this season, which is basically the third or fourth fastest team, then this race was a Ferrari 1-2. So I would rather say that it wasn't Ferrari that wasn't fast enough this weekend. It was Mercedes that worked well in cooler conditions. Like the W15 worked like a charm. And Hamilton should have been on the front row. It could have been a proper win battle. Russell and Hamilton going hammer and tongs. I would have loved to see that. Maybe they could have collided, I don't know. It's wishful thinking. But when Hamilton made his way back up to P2, Russell was basically 32 seconds up. He had to stop again. But that was the gap. Even after pitting, Russell was about 11 seconds ahead. Hamilton tried to claw that deficit back. Maybe there was a chance he could have caught him, but he ran out of tires. But yeah, this is good for Mercedes overall. I don't know if they can carry this form into Qatar or Abu Dhabi, but it bodes well for Russell and Antonelli next season. If they can carry this good form into next season and be a consistent front runner, I don't know if they can be, but hopefully for Russell, for Antonelli, they would hope that Mercedes find its way back to the front. At least be in a position where Ferrari is right now, where Ferrari have been this season. And for Russell again, after a disqualification in Belgium, big redemption moment, perfect redemption. He dominated the race. He was so good. In practice, then got pole, and then from start to finish, it was a seamless race for him. No mistakes. He's improved a lot since last season. Last season was a mess for him. That crash in Singapore, overall, he was way behind Hamilton, very inconsistent. But this year he's improved a lot. He's at par with him. He's blasted Hamilton in qualifying. 17 to 5. That is the record. Russell 17, Hamilton 5 in Grand Prix qualifying. This is Lewis Hamilton we are talking about. A man who has over 100 pole positions. That man has been beaten by George Russell by such a hefty margin. Either Mercedes have rigged the car towards Russell this year, or he's just that good in qualifying. There's a reason people call him Mr. Saturday. It's sort of gone out of fashion. They should bring it back. George Russell is a supreme qualifier for sure. I mean, Sainz has improved on qualifying. Piastri is getting there. Leclerc and Norris are definitely up there, besides Hamilton. But Russell is sort of an underrated driver overall. His qualifying pace is definitely supreme, and even his race pace and racecraft. The way he manages his race, I would really like to see Russell in a championship contending car. Hopefully, Mercedes give him. And the way he's improved, he's definitely going to be their leader. I hope that Mercedes renew his contract after 25. There has been a notion that they wanna have Kimi Antonelli for the long term. Hamilton is going out, so they wanna place their bets on Antonelli because he's such a good talent. That sort of means basically the notion was that if Max Verstappen becomes available for 2026 to come to Mercedes, Toto will desperately wants Verstappen. So George Russell might be the guy who may have to sacrifice his seat. And that would be awful, honestly. I hope that George Russell definitely becomes a world champion. He's 5 to 7 times better driver than Lando Norris. He has that edge to him which can help battle a Max Verstappen, which can help battle Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz. These are the drivers. George Russell, Oscar Piastri. They have that championship winning potential. I don't know if Sainz could ever become a world champion. I don't know if Leclerc and Ferrari can crack that any day. I don't know what's going to happen with them. Piastri definitely can be. The way McLaren's going right now, Oscar Piastri could win the 2025 championship easily. I don't see Norris prevailing against Piastri. But someone like Russell, he definitely makes the cut. So yeah, I hope Russell gets a new contract soon. His contract expires at the end of next season. I hope so. He finds a good team. If Mercedes are letting him go for Verstappen, ideally they should not let him go. So let's see what happens. The Ferraris, they were fighting at the wrong time and they were back to their old ways of botching up pit stops, of botching up strategies and races. Yes, Mercedes were the faster car. Yes, there was tire degradation, higher tire degradation in Vegas, but they made a mess of a simple race. I don't know, maybe the tire deck caught them off, but they made a mess of it for sure. Overall, they did well to secure a 3-4 finish. I think that was the best possible result given Mercedes was so supreme. But the way the pit wall handled Leclerc and Sainz, like they were swapping, then they were overtaking. Not an ideal way how you manage your drivers and maximize your results when you are chasing your first world championship in 16 years, wanting to break a 16-year drought of world championships. They have the Constructors' Championship within sight, 36 points behind McLaren, and they can't be fighting each other. And God knows what happens. A double DNF or a contact for one of the guys, they have a crash, anything can happen. It's a street circuit. There are concrete walls and barriers about 10 meters away from the car, and two squabbling cars at 200 miles per hour. Anything can go wrong. Like Hamilton is pursuing them, and at that moment, they want to swap cars. They want to swap positions when a rival team car is chasing them to get past and get to the podium. And the swap was anyways irrelevant because it did not help them in any way to maximize points, or Leclerc had a faster tire or he was on a better strategy. No, they were basically on the same strategy, and all they had to do is beeline a turn, defend from Hamilton, and ensure they maintain track position ahead of him. It could have been a double Ferrari podium. They were holding him off well for a few laps. They were holding him off well because they had better straight line speed. And then they called Sainz in to pit. I mean, what's going on? There is a car behind him. They have swapped cars right at that moment on that lap, and they ask to box him. And then they tell him on the radio that no, we are not ready. What's going on, Ferrari? It was absolute chaos, and I think Ferrari should be thankful to McLaren that they had an awful race, a worse race than them, which helped them take points out of their lead. It was 36 points before Vegas. Now the deficit is 24 points, so a 12 point swing in Ferrari's favor. They were lucky to have a 3-4 finish at the end. They were lucky that Verstappen led them through. He did not have the pace to hold them back. Had Verstappen had even a little bit of pace, he would have held them back and he would have got that podium. They could have held Hamilton back initially at that moment where all the kerfuffle happened with the swapping and the radio call to Sainz about pitting at that moment. They should have held Hamilton back, got one of them, got them one by one to pit, got them one by one to pit. Ideally, Sainz and Hamilton pitting on the same lap would have been perfect. He would have maintained track position, and then they would have pit Leclerc, and that would have been perfect for them. Leclerc would have basically finished second, with Sainz third and Hamilton fourth. They could have got Verstappen later, and Verstappen would have led them through. So I don't really understand what Ferrari were trying to do. They made a mess of it, and eventually they had to let Hamilton through. There was no chance he was staying behind with the pace he had, but I thought Ferrari could have held him back. But yeah, never mind. The constructors' battle is still on. 24-point deficit, 2 races left, Qatar and Abu Dhabi. Qatar is going to be a difficult race, they are saying, and yeah, last year it was a difficult race for them. Sainz did not even start. Good for him because last year's race was awful weather wise. There was so much heat. Drivers did not feel good. So it was a blessing in disguise for Carlos Sainz that he did not start that race. Hopefully, if they can reduce McLaren's deficit further in Qatar, there is a realistic chance in Abu Dhabi. If they can keep the battle alive till Abu Dhabi, maybe 10-12 points in it, like a race similar to Vegas in Qatar, should do it for them to have a realistic chance at the title in Abu Dhabi. 10-12 points, maybe 15 points, but then they need to have a really good race in Abu Dhabi as well. A 1-2 finish ideally, like USA, like 1-3 finish in Mexico. Who knows, Ferrari could win the Constructors' Championship finally after 2008 for the first time in 16 long years. Let's see, let's see. I do feel logically they might fall a bit short just in case one of the McLarens have an awful race and they lose points over there in one of the two races. That would really open the doors, but let's see how that happens. Now, a word for Las Vegas. Expectations were high. Last year was a blockbuster Grand Prix. So many overtakes. Overall, the track provided good action, and it is a much better track than Miami. Much better track than Miami. And both the races we have had, they have had a lot of racing action, a lot of overtaking, and it just provides some real good racing. It feels a good race. The atmosphere of the race, the event, that's definitely up there because there is so much focus on the glamour and the glitz of it. This year, honestly, though, the celebrities part, I did not feel it was too much. Last year, there was a lot of focus on the celebrity part and the entertainment and everything. This year, I felt that it was a bit relaxed. I did not feel that there was a lot of hype on celebrities and they focused on the sporting aspect of it. Perhaps because there was a championship on the line, Verstappen about to become a world champion, the constructors' title battle in prospect as well. So I think there was a lot of focus on the sporting side of it rather than the hype around the celebrities and the glamour. So that was a good, refreshing change. That a race in USA was focused on the sporting aspect. Austin definitely, in the last 2 years has seen that change. But still, in USA, whenever there's a race, the celebrities come and they hijack the vibe of F1. But in Vegas, at least, I do not feel that happened. It was a good sequel to last year's inaugural Grand Prix. And it was cool to see a champion being crowned in Vegas. Overall, it's strategically well placed on the calendar to have the championship winning moment. Like previously, we have seen dominant seasons by Hamilton sealing the championship in USA, in Mexico. There's basically 4 or 5 races to go, or 3 races to go. So it's very strategically placed, Vegas. 2 races to go, the third last race. We could see a lot of championship crowning moments if it stays this way in Vegas. Like it has to be a closer season like this where there is a lot more competition and hopefully a title battle. Ideally, the closest season like 2021 would go down to Abu Dhabi. But even seasons like these where there is a title battle going on, where the contender, the challenger like Norris, isn't likely to chase him down, chase the champion down, but it's still called a title battle, and and the championship is won in Vegas or Brazil. These are good races, Brazil and Las Vegas. See the championship getting sealed. Hopefully 2025 goes down to the wire in Abu Dhabi. But yeah, a fun Las Vegas Grand Prix, I would say. Few side notes. Williams, once again, another crash. Franco Colapinto. He's sort of becoming the Logan Sargent, maybe, I don't know. But he scored points. That's the main difference. The main difference between Colapinto and Sargent is Colapinto has scored points. He's not getting full-time seat as of yet next season. So that's an interesting subplot still to unfold. Liam Lawson still does not have any confirmation from RB or Red Bull. Perez struggled awfully. Another P10 finish where Verstappen was basically crowned the champion. He was nowhere. Another Q1 exit. For Williams, there is not much to say. We can just give sympathies to James Vowles and co. Hopefully they avoid having crashes next season and in these last two races, because this season has been awful for them. The amount of crashes is just, it's horrible. So yeah, next weekend would be Qatar. It's actually Qatar, but people are now used to calling it Qatar. Hopefully that's a good race and less taxing on the drivers. They actually moved the race from October, the first week of October, to the end of November and December basically. The Grand Prix will be on the 1st of December. They have moved it about 1.5 or 2 months away into the winter months because of the cooler conditions, definitely. Because last year it was horrific. There was so much heat. Drivers were struggling. They were puking after the race. Everyone fell ill, and I feel this is something they need to avoid. The turnaround that it's going to be, the travel from Las Vegas to Qatar, it's a long distance, and the race is next week. So this is something F1 needs to avoid next year. I don't know next year. I think it's going to be the same, but maybe in 26 they're making the calendar sustainable. They've ensured that Miami and Canada, they are now grouped together from 26. So they're regionalizing that calendar. That's all well and good. And they're keeping gaps between these flyby races, Singapore, USA. We've seen that with Miami this year. So hopefully they keep a week's buffer between Vegas and Qatar. We had a 3-week break after Brazil. They could have easily scheduled this Las Vegas Grand Prix on the last weekend. That could have given teams a 1-week buffer before they traveled to the Middle East and Qatar. And that could have been a double header properly done, Qatar and Abu Dhabi. So rather than having a triple header, so they could have done it this way. Brazil, a 1-week break, then Vegas, then another 1-week break, and then you come to Qatar and Abu Dhabi. So it became a long 3-week break basically between Brazil and Vegas. But yeah, that's all from my end in this Las Vegas GP episode. Good fun race, not the best of the year definitely. It was difficult to top Brazil. After Brazil having the best race of the year, I don't think Abu Dhabi or Qatar are gonna top it anyway, unless Abu Dhabi has a crazy controversy. But yeah, a good race in Vegas. Let's see what happens in Qatar. Arigato and stay tuned until next time.